Lab testing determined that Brian Zeisler's revolver had been the murder weapon.
Another point of interest was during the first day of the interview, when we took Brian down to our station to talk to him about what had happened and to get a more detailed statement from him. He had indicated that he had not gone near Sherry. He'd just seen her there and had not approached the body. But during questioning, detectives were able to notice what appeared to be blood on one of his tennis shoes. We ended up collecting those tennis shoes, and that blood was subsequently matched to Sherry Zeisler. We knew that her funeral was scheduled for about a week later. We got the warrant for the arrest, and we went to the funeral home where we found him. At the conclusion of the ceremony, we took him into a private room and informed him he was under arrest for the murder of Sherry Zeisler. He let out an...
That's what Brian Zeisler told detectives on the first day. He had just seen his wife there, had not approached the body. But here's the thing about interviews in a murder investigation. They're not conversations. They're crime scenes you build sentence by sentence. And the evidence doesn't care what you said.
He took some responsibility by pleading guilty to murder, but we never got a confession or full story of what happened. So, I mean, that's something that we couldn't completely give, the whole family, the whys. Why did this happen? Why did you do this? What led to it? Some of the finer details. I mean, obviously we know most of what happened, but really can't give you the why of what happened. She's unarmed and is shot 6 times in her own home. Getting justice for her was really important.
I could only imagine the fear that she felt, and your heart goes out to her and to her family.
The 67-year-old who had tried to pin his wife's murder on an unknown assailant was...
The evidence was already on his shoes. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure your
threats are becoming violent. It is essential to take immediate action to ensure your safety. If you are in a dangerous situation where your partner does have access to guns, does abuse substances, or has made those threats, prioritize your safety by leaving the environment as soon as possible. Go to a secure location where your partner cannot find you. This might be the home of a friend or family member, a shelter, or another safe place. Keep records of any threats, abusive incidents, or evidence of dangerous behavior. This documentation can be crucial if you need to seek legal protection or support. Contact domestic violence support organizations, such as the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE for guidance, resources, and assistance in planning your next steps. Remember, your safety is the most important priority. And again, that hotline number is 1-800-799.
A grave. And for 6 weeks, the Metropolitan Police searched that field, while the bodies were somewhere else entirely.
Zeisler looking out towards the driveway when Sherry returned from work.
Brian's observed standing there with a handgun in his hand, almost as if he's waiting to ambush Sherry as she walks in the front door.
So does he point the gun at Sherry?
As Sherry enters the door, it seemed to me that Brian had lost his nerve. He quickly shoved the gun into his waistband and hurried off into the living room to hide the weapon.
What did that tell you about the crime?
Sherry's murder was premeditated. He was planning to kill her.
Lab testing determined that Brian Zeisler's revolver had been the murder weapon.
Another point of interest was during the first day of the interview, when we took Brian down to our station to talk to him about what had happened and to get a more detailed statement from him. He had indicated that he had not gone near Sherry. He'd just seen her there and had not approached the body. But during questioning, detectives were able to notice what appeared to be blood on one of his tennis shoes. We ended up collecting those tennis shoes, and that blood was subsequently matched to Sherry Zeisler.
He killed 2 children for a freight company. The breakthrough did not come from forensics. It came from a conscience. Peter Reese, Reagan's accomplice, went to a boarding house in the Forest of Dean. He sat down with a woman named Wendy Powles, a stranger, and he started talking. He said Reagan was crazy. He said Reagan shot them. And then Wendy Powles heard the line that ended the entire conspiracy. He killed 2 children. She did not hesitate. She called the police. That confession broke the wall of silence. But even with Reese in custody, even with the letter found inside Anil's sock, the prosecution had to prove a nightmare. No witness saw the murders. No gun was recovered. No DNA on a weapon. What they had was a mortgage letter addressed to Kenneth Reagan, dated February 12, 2003.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's crime expose takes us to Findlay, Ohio, about 45 miles south of Toledo. This quiet community was plunged into chaos by the savage murder of Sherry Zeisler inside her own home. As police slowly pieced together the evidence, it revealed the awful truth. Sherry Zeisler didn't see her killer coming until she was staring down the barrel of his gun.
The man who claimed an intruder had done it. The same man whose own surveillance cameras showed him standing in his own doorway 2 nights earlier with a handgun.
It was November the 15th at 6:06 a.m. on a bitterly cold Monday morning when a frantic call came into the sheriff's department.
911, where's your emergency?
65-year-old Brian Zeisler told the dispatcher he had just discovered the lifeless body of his wife on the floor.
There's blood on the floor. Just get the deputies out here, please.
Officers raced to the scene and found 59-year-old Sherry Zeisler surrounded by a pool of blood.
We found Sherry in the master bedroom. There was a large amount of blood that was underneath her. She was laying on her stomach and had her shirt pulled up over her head.
Waiting for her to come home from work? That's not an intruder.
It looked as if the killer had dropped the murder weapon before fleeing the scene.
There was a Rossi revolver that was found right near her feet.
Detectives asked Sherry's distraught husband to share everything that had happened. He said the night before, he had fallen asleep in the living room. He had always been a heavy sleeper, so when he woke up, he was shocked to see his home have been robbed overnight.
He found the house to be in disarray, like it had been ransacked, with the front and rear doors propped open.
He feared his wife had heard the intruder and tried to intervene.
Someone had broken into the house and Sherry had awoken and confronted them.
However, police found her wallet and other valuables had been left untouched.
There was a lot of high-value items that were just laying around throughout the house that had not been taken.
Signing blank sheets of paper under duress?
We found 3 security cameras throughout the property.
Where on the property were the cameras positioned?
The front door, the rear door to the residence.
Got another camera back here.
And another was mounted inside the dining room, and that monitored the entirety of the dining room, along with the entrance into the living room, and not quite into the bedroom, but almost.
The Zeisler security cameras were brought to the lab for an analysis. Were you hopeful the crime had been caught on camera?
Getting that footage was critical. Could we see that somebody did try to come in through a back door or through a front door? So getting that information was a critical piece of the investigation.
Not the reaction of a shocked, innocent man. The reaction of a man who knew the math had finally caught up to him. He asked if he could give his property to his son. They agreed. He hugged his son. He said he was sorry. Not to the detectives, not to the family, to his son.
The mystery of Sherry's murder deepened when police found the doors to the Zeisler's home hadn't been tampered with.
There wasn't any sign of forced entry. There were no broken windows. There was no broken door frames.
The evidence caused investigators to shift gears.
You start to eliminate the robbery gone wrong because you don't have any evidence whatsoever.
They wondered if the scene had been staged to make it look like her murder had been the result of a botched robbery. So at this point, what are you thinking? What questions are you asking yourself?
Was this somebody who knew her? Was somebody mad at Sherry? Who are all the potential suspects?
The medical examiner found gunshot wounds throughout her body. Multiple holes, multiple entries. That's not a moment of rage.
Sherry had been working on refinishing the floors in their master bedroom.
The couple had been renovating their home and doing some spring cleaning.
Investigators watched Sherry talking on the phone with her daughter-in-law at around 5 p.m.
You have Sherry at 5:07 on the phone, comes back through at about 5:13. You see Brian go into the living room around 5:13 as well. And then at some point the call must have ended, and you see Sherry not on a phone call.
What happens next?
5:20, Sherry is observed walking towards the master bedroom.
And do you see Sherry after that?
You never see her ever again.
Signing blank sheets of paper under duress. That letter placed Anil Chauhan inside Reagan's home on the day he was kidnapped. It was not a smoking gun. It was...
So that was very concerning.
Minutes later, investigators watched Brian Zeisler storm out of the master bedroom.
The best way I can describe it is he just looks like he's enraged, like he is just incredibly angry.
Detectives saw the Zeisler's cat on the video and noticed its behavior.
And the cat looks at Brian, looks back to the area where Sherry would have been shot, and looks back at Brian.
Clearly something had just happened to pique that animal's curiosity.
So was it at that point that you knew who killed Sherry Zeisler?
It was at that point I figured that Brian had murdered his wife.
Signing blank sheets of paper under duress.
Data gathered from Sherry's watch showed her pulse had come to a stop at 5:28 p.m.
The last pulse from Sherry Zeisler was recorded at 5:28 p.m. on November 14th, 2021. And her pulse was at 121. Looking back to the several days prior to that, her pulse had never gone above 90. And so you look at that at 121, the heart's probably trying to pump as much as it can, and it's not doing what it needs to because she has multiple holes and gunshot wounds throughout her body. And so shortly thereafter, Sherry Zeisler died.
Signing blank sheets of paper under duress.
As detectives scrolled through the surveillance footage, they watched Brian trying to make it appear as though an intruder had committed the crime.
You see him going through the house and basically staging the property to look like it had been ransacked or broken into.
And that wasn't all. 2 days before Sherry's murder, at 8:22 p.m., the cameras had captured Brian.
And then he never made another statement. That's the pattern. He had refused to explain why he gunned down his wife of 30 years. Prosecutors are hopeful that someday he will explain to the family why he did something so unimaginable. But here's what you need to understand. He pleaded guilty on September 13th, 2023. He took some responsibility, but a guilty plea is not a confession.
So does he point the gun at Sherry?
As Sherry enters the door, it seemed to me that Brian had lost his nerve. He quickly shoved the gun into his waistband and hurried off into the living room to hide the weapon.
What did that tell you about the crime?
Sherry's murder was premeditated. He was planning to kill her.
A guilty plea is a calculation. He never gave the family the why. He never told them what led to it. Some of the finer details. The detective said, "We know most of what happened, but we really can't give you the why." Why did this happen? That's the ticking clock moment. That's the question that reframes this entire story as a thriller, not just another domestic homicide. Because here's what the transcript actually shows. A 67-year-old man who thought he was going to outsmart investigators, who staged a crime scene, who lied about the gun.
Audible gasp, and his shoulders slumped. He asked if he could give his property to his son, who was standing in close proximity. We agreed to that, and that's when he gave his son a hug and told him he was sorry. He never really made any other statements to us. I was somewhat surprised as we let him out. There was a smattering of cheers and applause from some of the family members that were there.
Faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, on September 13th, 2023, he pled guilty to murdering his wife in cold blood.
Signing blank sheets of paper under duress. 2 days before the murder, where Devinder takes his first steps and his grandmother laughs. Kenneth Regan and William Hornsey received 5 consecutive life sentences. They will never be released. Peter Reese got 23 years. The judge called the crimes beyond belief. But belief is not required. Evidence is required. Here is the unanswered question. The letter from the Cheltenham and Gloucester Building Society was entered as
Sentenced to 15 years to life behind bars.
He thought he was going to outsmart investigators. That didn't happen.
Even after Brian Zeisler's conviction, he has refused to explain why he gunned down his wife of 30 years. Prosecutors are hopeful that someday he will explain to the family why he did something so unimaginable.
signing blank sheets of paper under duress. It is a public record. You can request it. You can look at the folds. You can see where seawater stained the paper. And you can ask yourself one question that no court has ever fully answered. If Anil Chauhan had time to hide that letter in his sock,
9 safe. I'm Nancy O'Dell. For all of us here at Crime Expose, please join us next time and stay safe.